The actual issue was not a lack of love. The issue was the meaning that she assigned to his behavior. Welcome to Life and Love by Design. I'm life and relationship coach Odette Coronel. This podcast is for individuals and couples who are done living on autopilot, who are ready to understand the patterns shaping their relationships, their choices, and their sense of self, and redesign them with purpose and intention. Here, we don't just talk about what's hard. We name what's actually happening beneath it and what to do about it. And if you start recognizing yourself or your relationship in these conversations, know that this is the exact work that I do with my private coaching clients, individuals and couples who are ready for real change. Because a meaningful life and connected relationships don't happen by default. They're designed. So let's begin. Welcome back to Life and Love by Design. I'm relationship coach Odette Coronel, and this is a podcast where we talk about how to live and love with purpose and intention and not by default. Today, I want to talk about something that every single one of us does. And it's something that often creates conflict, whether in your marriage, in your families, with your friendships or coworkers, and even within ourselves. We become experts of spotting exactly what's wrong with other people. We can tell you exactly what our spouses should be doing differently. We can explain to you why our boss drives us crazy. We can list all the reasons that our mother or sister, daughter, friend, or coworker or partner is difficult. And if we're honest, we can sometimes do this with remarkable detail. We have examples. We've got evidence. We've got stories. We've got receipts. And yet, despite all that evidence, many of us stay stuck. Not because we're wrong necessarily, but it's really because we're looking in the wrong direction. One of the most transformative things that I've learned in my work with my clients and even in my own personal life is that the problem isn't always what someone else is doing. Sometimes the problem is the story we've created about what their behavior means. So today we're going to explore why we focus so much on other people's faults, what it costs us, and how shifting our attention inward can completely change our relationships. And again, not because we're blaming ourselves, but just because awareness creates options, and options create change. Now, here's a thought that might sting a little bit. Most people don't actually want a better relationship. What they want is a better version of the other person. Think about it for a minute. You probably spend hours thinking, I wish he would communicate better. Or I wish she would stop criticizing me. I wish she understood me. And while those things are valid, just notice where your focus is. It's always out there. It's always about them. As long as the problem is them, then we don't have to examine ourselves. And that's where many of us get stuck. I once worked with a client who was so frustrated with her husband. And, her complaint was pretty simple. He never talks. And what she wanted was connection, conversation, meaningful discussions. And at the end of the day, she would ask, how was work? And maybe she would share something about her day. She would try to talk about their relationship. And every time she felt like she got almost nothing back. Maybe one-word answers or really short responses, or sometimes even silence. Eventually, she just became convinced that she knew exactly what was happening. And she would come into a session and she would say, he doesn't care. He's emotionally unavailable. Or he doesn't want a deep relationship. And then the more that she believed that story, the more evidence she found to support it. Every quiet evening became proof. Every short answer became proof. Every missed opportunity to connect became proof. So during our coaching, I remember asking her, what if his silence means something different than what you've decided that it means? And she looked at me like I had three heads because she never considered that possibility. She thought she knew. She had sized him up. She knew exactly what was wrong with him. She had already decided. But really, it was just a story that she had created, and it was very possible, in fact, very likely, that he had a completely different reality or a different story. His behavior very likely meant something different than what she assumed that it meant, but she never considered another possibility. And as we dug deeper, something really surprising started to emerge. Her husband wasn't really withdrawing because he didn't care. He was actually withdrawing because he felt like he couldn't get anything right. He felt criticized. He felt judged. He felt like every single conversation ended with him being told what he should be doing differently. So he stopped engaging, not because he didn't care, but just because he was protecting himself. Now, here's what's important. Her experience was real. She genuinely felt disconnected, but the meaning that she attached to her husband's behavior was not accurate. And that's something that we all do. We see the behavior and we assign meaning. We treat that meaning like if it's fact. And there is a reason why we do this. The human brain is a meaning-making machine. We're constantly trying to answer questions. Why did they say that? Why didn't they call? Why were they so quiet? Why didn't they help me? Why did he forget? And when we don't have answers, our brains just create them. The problem is that the stories that we create are often based on our own fears, our insecurities, or maybe past experiences or assumptions. They're not based on reality. And then once we believe a story, we start finding evidence, right? We collect the evidence for it. We become like detectives. We're prosecutors, we're case builders, right? We stop seeing the whole person. We only see the evidence that supports our conclusion. Think about it. Where in your life might you be doing this? Maybe it's not with your spouse necessarily. Maybe it's with your children or your parents or with a coworker or your boss. Let me give you another example. Have you ever sent a text message and not received a response? Maybe hours have passed, maybe even a whole day. And what's really fascinating is how our minds then start filling in the blanks. They're ignoring me. They don't care about me. Or maybe they're mad at me. Or they're being disrespectful. Then maybe later you find out that, maybe they were in a meeting all day. Or maybe they were sick. Or that their phone died. Or maybe they just forgot. The point is that the facts never changed, just the story changed. And what you made it mean, the fact that they did not respond immediately. But when the story changes, then your emotional experience changes too. And that's what's powerful. It's completely normal that when somebody frustrates you, you're going to ask yourself, why are they doing this? But a far more useful question is asking yourself, why is this affecting me so deeply? Now, when you ask that question, you're looking inward. Now you're exploring yourself. Maybe their behavior is triggering an old wound. Maybe it touches on a fear of rejection. It might activate a feeling of not being good enough. Maybe it reminds you of an experience from a really long time ago. Asking yourself these questions and then answering them is going to give you some really valuable data. Not because you're wrong, but because your reaction is telling you something really important. So let's try something. I want you to think right now about someone that you're frustrated with. Who is it? Think of that person. What story have you created about them? What assumptions are you making? What meaning have you attached to their behavior? And then I want you to ask yourself, what if my interpretation isn't the whole truth? What else can be true? That question alone can totally transform your relationship. I worked with another client that was convinced that her husband just didn't prioritize her. Every time he worked late, every time he got distracted, every time he spent some time on something else, she took it personally. To her, it meant that she wasn't a priority to him. She made it mean that she wasn't important to him, that she didn't matter, or that he'd rather be with someone else than be with her. But as we explored further, we discovered something else. She had never actually told him that quality time was really important to her and what it looked like to spend quality time. She was hoping that he would just know. She thought that he should just know. She shouldn't have to tell him. She was hoping that, if he loved her, he would just figure it out. What she was hoping for is that he would read her mind. And when he didn't read her mind, she decided that that was proof that he didn't care. But the actual issue was not a lack of love. The issue was the meaning that she assigned to his behavior. And once she learned how to communicate her needs clearly, then everything began to change. And one of the most humbling things that I've personally learned is that the people that trigger us most often reveal something within us. Not always, but often. Sometimes we're angry that someone has boundaries because we struggle with our own boundaries. Sometimes we're frustrated by someone's confidence because maybe we're afraid to express ourselves fully. Sometimes we're exhausted by everyone else's demands because we've spent years saying yes to things that we actually wanted to say no to. So these moments are invitations. They're opportunities, mirrors. And while mirrors aren't always comfortable, they can be incredibly valuable. And I want to be clear, this is not about blaming yourself. This is not about accepting poor treatment from anyone. And this isn't about pretending that everyone else gets a free pass. This is not what this is at all. This is about taking responsibility for understanding your own experience. Blame says, it's all my fault. Responsibility says, I want to understand what's happening inside of me. Those are two very different things, and one is far more empowering than the other one. The goal is to stop making assumptions. The goal is curiosity. And curiosity sounds like, I wonder what else could be true. I wonder what they're experiencing. I wonder what this is bringing up in me. Judgment says they're the problem. They're wrong. They need to change. Curiosity creates connection. Judgment creates distance. So if this conversation is resonating with you, this is exactly the kind of work that I do with my clients. Understanding patterns, improving communication, breaking free from assumptions, and creating deeper connection. You can find information about my coaching and ways to work with me in the show notes. But before we finish, I want to leave you with 3 questions. What have I decided is the problem? What story have I created about them? And what might change if I became curious instead of certain? Because sometimes the greatest obstacle in our relationships isn't actually the other person's behavior. It's the meaning that we've attached to it. It's the assumptions that we've made. It's the stories that we choose to believe. And the moment that we become willing to question those stories, then new possibilities start to emerge. Thank you for joining me today. Please make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, share this episode with someone that you think needs to hear this. And remember that the quality of your relationships isn't really determined by finding the perfect person or being around perfect people. It's really determined by our own willingness to be aware, stay curious, and choose understanding over making assumptions. So until next time, remember that your life and your love are yours to design. If today's episode described you or your relationship, then this is your moment. You don't need more information. You need a new way of living, choosing, and relating. And that's the work I do with individuals and couples. If you're ready to stop repeating the same patterns and start designing your life and relationships intentionally, visit the link in the show notes and book a complimentary relationship and life audit. Remember, your life and your love are yours to design.